We all want our fruit trees to be highly productive with the sweetest of fruits, and that all begins late winter to early spring. In this video, I'll be covering common diseases and pests of fruit trees and how to control them, some pruning tips, as well as some fertilizing. Fruit trees are an investment, both time and money, and we want to get the most out of them. Diseases can not only affect the tree, but also the fruit on the tree. Through soil health and pruning, as well as dormant spraying, you can control many of these fungal diseases. Diseases can be spread through rain splash, insect vectors, contaminated tools, and airborne spores, or just environmental conditions like humidity and wind. Powdery mildew is spread by airborne spores that land on the leaves and the fruit of your fruit trees. By opening up the canopy, you will increase airflow, which helps reduce powdery mildew. You can also spray a neem oil spray on your fruit trees. This will help reduce it, and you'll want to spray when fruit has just set or you just start to see symptoms of powdery mildew. You also want to avoid overhead watering because that increases the humidity. You want to water at ground level, a nice deep soak. Apple scab spores are spread by rain splash and wind from fallen and infected leaves. Again, open up the canopy to allow for good airflow. And in the fall time, when the leaves drop, rake those infected leaves up so that you don't have any overwintering spores. You can also spray during the dormant season a copper spray to help reduce. And then after you've had fruit set, you can spray with a neem oil to help reduce this problem. Brown rot is spread by spores from rain splash of mummified fruit. Mummified fruit is just shriveled fruit that sticks to your fruit tree and holds on to those spores. One of the best ways that you can control brown rot is good orchard sanitation. Remove those mummified fruits as soon as you can and rake them up off of the ground as well and dispose of them. Avoid overhead watering because that acts like rain splash. The water hits those mummified fruits, spreading the spores. Also open up the center to allow more airflow and to allow the tree to dry out faster even when you have rain. You can use a copper spray during the dormant season or neem during the early growing season. Fire blight is a bacterial infection that's spread by insects as well as infected tools. You want to make sure when you're using tools to prune your trees that you disinfect them anytime you have any disease present. For fire blight, you can use a copper spray during the dormant season. And in the early spring after fruit set, this is when your highest risk of fire blight is to spray a bacillus strain type of a spray, like Serenade. You want to do it before it gets too hot as well, because any of your bacillus sprays are going to degrade pretty quickly in the hot sun. Corneum blight is prevalent on apricots in our area. It's a spore that enters through the wound. You can spray a copper spray during the dormant season, and once again, the neem oil once your fruit just starts to develop early spring. You can reduce the risk of corneum blight by opening up the canopy of your fruit tree, allowing for more airflow, and avoid overhead watering. Do you see the pattern here? Through good orchard sanitation, proper watering techniques, as well as pruning, then you can reduce the risk of all of these diseases. Insects can be reduced when you spray a horticultural oil during the dormant season. It smothers insects and their eggs like mealybugs, scale, aphids, and mites. This helps maintain a more healthier, resilient orchard. Spraying should never be done when flowers are present, even if you're using an organic spray, because this is when your bees are the most active. You can spray right up to bud formation, but once those flowers are open, stop spraying. For injuries like sun scalds or broken branches, you can actually paint a full-strength neem on the tree without harming the tree. What this does is it gets in those nooks and crannies where those insects lay their eggs, and they also hide, preventing further breakouts. Prune during the dormant season, generally January or February, and March in colder regions. You want to get it done just before the buds start to swell. Don't stress over pruning. Start with these basics. Remove the 3 Ds: dead, diseased, and damaged. Remove any branches that are crossing each other. Also make some thinning cuts to just open it up, that tree up, so that it has more airflow on it. You can open up the center and allow more sunlight, which actually makes the tree's fruit much sweeter. If your trees aren't pruned and they have a real dense canopy, there's not going to be much airflow in that tree. And if you get a lot of rainfall, it's not going to dry out very quick. And so you're going to have a higher chance of disease. If you have a dead branch or even twigs on your tree, you want to remove those quickly as possible, no matter the season. If that branch is left there, then that dead part of that branch can actually travel down that tree, causing a bigger problem. Summer pruning can be done, removing a lot of that new growth that you get in the springtime, allowing that airflow and letting that sunshine in to sweeten the fruit. If your trees are closely planted together, summer pruning is necessary, in my opinion, for the health of the tree as well as the surrounding trees. I have several peach trees that are planted about 8 foot apart from the fig trees that are on the north side. Peach trees can grow easily 5 to 6 foot in a season. And if I don't trim these peach trees back, then that's going to block the sunlight to those fig trees. And those figs aren't going to ripen as fast as they would, and the flavor isn't near as good. When it comes to painting or using a black sealant on cuts of your tree or even wounds of the trees is an old practice, and it's not recommended anymore. By painting the ends, you can actually trap in that moisture, causing bacteria and fungi. Trees have their own natural compounds to help fight off infections naturally. Just let nature take its course. There's also some concerns about the chemicals that can hinder the healing process. So save yourself some time and money and bypass painting your cuts and wounds on your trees. Fertilizing your fruit trees can be done just about any time of the year, but for your trees to benefit the most, springtime is the best time to do it, when your buds just start to swell. And for us in our zone 8, that's mid to the end part of February, at least for our plums, apricots, and almonds. The rest of the trees will start to swell a few weeks later, and so I'll go ahead and do all of my trees at the same time to save myself some time in the long run. To fertilize your fruit trees, you can use an organic fruit tree fertilizer mix, or you can use an old-time mix that consists of 1/2 cup of blood meal, 1 cup of fish bone meal, and 1 cup of kelp meal. This is for established trees, and you'll sprinkle it around the drip line of each one of your trees. In my orchard, I grow clover. This keeps the mud down, and when it blooms, it feeds the bees. And when I mow it, it decomposes slowly, providing nitrogen for the fruit trees. Now, fruit trees don't need a lot of nitrogen, but this provides just the right amount. If you only have a few fruit trees, then buying the fruit tree mix might be your best option. But I have a lot of fruit trees. I've got 48, and I want to do it as economical as I can. So I feed my trees with a CalPhos, which has phosphorus and it has calcium in it as well. I only have to feed 1 pound to 2 pounds per tree. And it costs me around $2 per tree to feed because I'm already supplying the nitrogen with the clover that I'm growing. And then I have the phosphorus, and I also apply compost over the top of this rock phosphate. CalPhos is also known as soft rock phosphate. I'll apply 2 pounds per established tree around the drip line, which is the outer perimeter of the canopy. Most of the trees' fine feeder roots are concentrated on the top few inches of the soil and extend outward from the trunk. Whatever fertilizer is being used, sprinkle it in that area and apply a nice layer of mulch, or even better yet, compost over the top. This makes it so that I don't have to work the fertilizer into the soil. The compost covers the fertilizer, giving it good contact with the soil, allowing the microbes to break it down, making it available to the tree. I generally only fertilize in the spring with the addition of compost over the top, and then do a second layer of compost in the fall time just to replenish what the soil and the trees have used up. But if your trees are lacking, then you can fertilize again in late summer. If you're using compost that's made from strictly animal manures, then you can use half the amount of phosphorus because animal manures are rich in phosphorus as opposed to plant-based compost. Through these steps, you'll be on your way to delicious fruit this summer and fall. For more information on summer pruning as well as spraying horticultural oil, check these videos out here. Thanks for joining me today, and may God bless you.